Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Alex De Martino. I'm one of the education coordinators at Unidos Now. I'm joined by one of our other education coordinators, Lucero Guzman. Today is our fourth and final pre-FLA workshop. And today we're going to be talking about something that is very important. Even though you are all freshmen, it's still important to start thinking about this now, and that is how to pay for college. So we're going to look at, what is financial aid, types of financial aid, different resources you can use, how to pay for college. We're going to look at FAFSA, Bright Futures, and also local scholarships, kind of interpreting and identifying award packages colleges might offer you. We're also going to talk about predatory lending and a financial aid timeline that will help you plan accordingly. So this is a question for you all, but how much do you think it costs to go to a public university in Florida? Just give me your best guess. You can put it in the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself, but you're more than welcome to unmute.
Maybe without scholarship, it might be in the 30 or 40 thousands, but maybe with scholarship, it'll be a lot less.
Okay, yeah, 30 or 40,000. All right. Anyone else want to take a guess? Let's see. 32,000? All right, that's okay. That's a good answer. Anyone else? I'm waiting for the person who says a lot of money because, yes, of course, that's the right answer, right? It's just a lot of money. Okay, give it one more second. All right. Well, a lot more than private. It depends on the school, but usually private schools tend to be a little bit more expensive than publics. So, all right, are we ready? It is approximately $24,000 per year. This includes tuition, books, fees, transportation, housing, and food. So, I mean, $24,000 per year is not terrible for college. Any adult will tell you it costs a lot more to be an adult per year than to go to college per year, at least for public schools in Florida. So yeah, that's what you're going to be looking at for, schools like University of South Florida, University of Florida. New College is actually a public university as well. But there are ways to make this cost lower, as Amy mentioned. So what are those ways? Well, we would call this financial aid, and financial aid is any form of funding that helps students pay for college. It can come in the form of free money, earned money, or borrowed money. But in terms of free money, it tends to be like need-based, or it could be merit-based, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So yeah, as I said, any form of funding that will help you pay for college that doesn't come from your family or personal savings or earnings. So it's used to make paying for college more affordable. So like I said, it can include free money or money you pay back, usually with some form of interest. And these are grants, and that tends to be the free money that you can get, and those are tend to be need-based or merit-based. And then this is funding made available by an individual or organization for use by, another person to finance a particular activity or event or charity or facility. And they're kind of created for that specific purpose. So they're not usually like yearly opportunities, but many are. And you tend to get these more when you go on to grad school and less when you go in for your bachelor's degree. But what you might get a lot of times for your bachelor's degree are scholarships. And these are payments that are awarded to students. It can either be need-based or merit-based, and there's no need to repay. And then there's also work study, which is need-based, and the earnings that you might get from working go directly to your tuition and fees associated with school. So there's also no repayment. And you get work study by filling out the FAFSA. which we'll talk about in a bit. And then there are loans, which are not free money. You do have to pay these back. There's different types. There's federal or private loans. There's subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans. And the main difference between those is that unsubsidized loans, try saying that 3 times fast, has interest during your college years and is not need-based. So federal student loans and federal parent loans go under this. These are loans funded by the federal government, whereas private student loans are, funded to you by banks or credit unions or the school itself. So we can determine, different types of financial aid. And I said this on the last slide, are merit-based and need-based. And what are the differences? So can someone tell me what they think the differences between need-based aid and merit-based aid are?
Need-based could mean someone's financial situation, they can't afford to actually go to school because of the tuition, while merit-based could just be having the ability to afford it, but you just want to go seek out for some other financial aid to help you.
Yes, that's pretty much it. Yeah, need-based looks at, your financial situation, and to determine how much money they're going to give you. So this is when you fill out the FAFSA. Schools offer a lot of need-based scholarships. And there will also be the CSS profile that certain colleges will require that you fill out. That's very similar to the FAFSA. It just tends to look at a few more details than the FAFSA does. And then there is merit-based aid, and this is based on your achievements. So, if you're in sports or if you're a really good student, you can get money for all that you've achieved in high school. And this also includes like the Bright Future Scholarship, and a bunch of other scholarships as well. So, you have a lot of resources at your disposal. At your disposal for financial aid. One of these is your FAFSA. So in high school, and even though you're not really eligible to fill out your FAFSA until your senior year, it's really important to kind of understand what it is, ahead of time. And a lot of this that we're going to tell you about today really isn't going to become relevant until your junior year, but there are scholarships available for students, who are freshmen and sophomores, not as many for seniors, but, it's always good to start looking early, even for those that you can't apply for yet. It's good to, kind of click and save them for later. So FAFSA is one of those. This is the free application for federal student aid. It helps you qualify for not only, national level federal aid, but state and school aid. And it can also help you find scholarships that you qualify for, because a lot of scholarships do require that, you send in your FAFSA information, like what your expected family contribution is. So it's really important to have a good understanding of that. Another good resource at school are counselors. So they can tell you about different scholarship opportunities, such as, Florida Bright Futures or, Florida Financial Aid for students. There's a lot of scholarships on that website as well, like the Jose Marti Scholarship, as well as some others. You can also look for scholarships online. Some reputable websites that you can do that at are, the College Board website, scholarships.com, fastweb.com. I think Chegg even has like a scholarships website on their page. There's a ton out there. Some are not so, safe, but you can find, some really safe and good scholarship websites out there if you know what to look for. And then, in college, you can talk to a financial aid advisor at your school. Each school has a financial aid office. That's who your go-to is going to be when you need to pay your tuition every semester. They either call it the financial aid office or the bursar's office, depending on the school. So, you can go talk to them if you need help or if you need, more information about school. Based like scholarships, they're your go-to. Admissions officers can also give you that information about what financial aid the school might be able to offer you in terms of what is known as institutional aid. So those are really great things to keep in mind once you start looking for colleges, is talking to them about what they can offer you in terms of financial support. And then there is also work study jobs, like I mentioned earlier with the FAFSA. There's an option on the FAFSA to, kind of say like you'd like to do work study. And that essentially means that you would work at maybe the cafe on campus or the library or the front desk, and that would, give you extra money to pay for your tuition and anything else you might need for school. So, any questions so far? No? Okay. So we're going to move on to how to pay for college. The first step, first and foremost, is completing the FAFSA. This opens every year on October 1st. And if you're eligible for it, you can get awards up to the amount of about $6,345. I know that recently a motion was just passed by our government to increase that number. So I think it's going to be about $6,500 or so dollars. And they're also working to simplify the FAFSA, so it's not going to be as long by the time you all need to fill it out, which is really good because it is a very long and tedious document, but it's not as hard as people make it out to be. So you might have heard a lot of things about the FAFSA, but before I go into, dismissing any misconceptions, I want to know what you guys know about the FAFSA outside of it can give you free money. So who is willing to unmute themselves and tell me what they know? And if you don't know anything, that's okay. I just want to see if anyone knows anything about the FAFSA.
Well, doesn't FAFSA, I've heard that sometimes, well, I know that's really important to, if you have any financial disadvantages, it's important to apply as well. But I also know that it gives, money to go for colleges, and I don't really know anything else besides that.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, Amy. Thank you. Karina says it's very important to apply, which it absolutely is. Anyone else have anything they'd like to add? No? It's okay. All right. Well, the first you might hear a lot of is it costs too much money. It does not. It is free. It's in the title. It's the free application for federal student aid. It costs no money. If you're on a website that says like, it's FAFSA related, but it's charging you, you're not at the right place. It should always have like a .gov, like at the end of the website, so you know that you're on a government website. Another misconception you might hear is that it's too unsafe to fill out the FAFSA. It does, require that you put in your sensitive information. So this is like, your social security number, your parents' tax information, but it is perfectly safe to fill out the FAFSA. All the information is used solely to determine your eligibility for your financial aid. It's used to help you, not hurt you. The only people who have access to the information that you put in the FAFSA is the Department of Education and the financial aid office at the schools that you're applying to. No one else gets to look at the FAFSA unless you show them. But no one outside of, those two or, couple of entities gets to see what's on your FAFSA. Another thing I hear a lot of is that, my parents make too much money for me to get anything. That is not true. There is no income cutoff to qualify for federal student aid. You never know what you're going to get until you ask for it, right? So it never hurts to fill it out. It is free to fill out. It only takes about an hour. it does not hurt. So even if you think that you might not get anything because your parents make too much money, you might be surprised. This is also another thing that I hear a lot from seniors because, your senior year hits, you get kind of, senioritis. You're not looking forward to filling things out. While it can be confusing, it is not really that hard to fill out. We have a lot of, we're very fortunate to live in an area that has a lot of FAFSA workshops and a lot of people who are, happy to help you fill out the FAFSA. It's actually designed to be pretty simple to fill out. People, like I said, usually finish it in about an hour or less. We ourselves at Unidos Now, can help you fill out the FAFSA if you need it. But we have some community partners who also put on FAFSA workshops as well. And then lastly, I'm undocumented, DACA, TPS, so filling out the FAFSA won't benefit me at all. This is not true. While students who are undocumented cannot fill out the electronic version of the FAFSA, you can fill out a paper one if the financial aid office at the school requests it, but there are also other options for you that we'll talk about a little bit later on if this applies to you. If you are DACA or TPS, you should fill out the FAFSA. You cannot receive federal financial aid at this point in time, unfortunately. Hopefully that changes soon, but you should fill out the FAFSA. It's very important because schools want you to come and attend at their institutions. They're willing to offer you financial aid, but in order to determine how much financial aid they can offer you, they need some sort of documentation, and the FAFSA gives them that documentation. But for all other students, filling out the FAFSA gives you access to your student aid report, and this goes for DACA or TPS students, which helps schools get a better idea of your financial situation. Also, it's very important to note that the citizenship status of your parents does not affect, or won't affect your FAFSA. The only thing it would do, if this qualifies for you, is that means that your parents wouldn't be able to use the IRS retrieval tool. But it does not affect any financial aid that you might receive. So, any questions so far? No? Okay, we're moving on. All right, so exploring the FAFSA. Definition, like I said, free application for federal student aid. The function of it is it determines eligibility for federal student financial aid. It collects and applies financial information for need-based financial aid. It calculates your expected family contribution. Like in order to get full, Pell Grant, that's the $6,000 or so that the FAFSA can give you, you need about an EFC of 0. That will also allow schools to offer you more need-based financial aid as well. And that number that you get, that EFC, will be in your student aid report, or your SAR for short. So that's pretty much the function of the FAFSA. And then important dates regarding the FAFSA. It opens every year like clockwork on October 1st. You all are freshmen currently, but I don't know, take out your phone, put down a calendar reminder for October 1st of your freshman year that the FAFSA is opening and you got to fill it out. So, it's first come, first serve. So it's advised to fill it out as soon as possible. And most colleges actually require students to fill it out, once a year, even if you're not applying for a Pell Grant or a student loan. If you're undocumented, DACA, TPS, there are alternatives to that, but it's up to you to advocate for yourself with your financial aid office. Usually someone on staff does have experience with undocumented students or DACA students, so you will be able to find someone who can walk you through that process. So that's kind of like the basics of the FAFSA. So I have a question for you all. Do all the students who complete the FAFSA receive free money? You put yes or no in the chat. Or thumbs up, thumbs down for thumbs up for yes. No, no. No. Okay. Resounding no's. That is true. Not everyone who completes the FAFSA will get free money. The financial aid office at your college will actually determine how much financial aid you're eligible to receive. So it's really up to them. So, when you apply for a lot of colleges, you'll get what is known as a financial aid letter. And that tells you that they took your information from the FAFSA or whatever other documents that you provided. If you're not eligible to fill out the FAFSA, and they looked at it and they went, okay, here's how much money we can give you. So it's not up to the Department of Education to determine, how much Pell Grant you were going to get. It's actually up to the schools itself. So that's really all about FAFSA. And we're gonna move a little bit more, talking more about FAFSA. And that's looking at federal student aid. So this is aid granted by completing the FAFSA. This can include, as I mentioned, Pell Grant, federal work study, federal student loans. These are all things given by the government to make college more affordable. And, Pell Grant, federal work study, as I mentioned early on, are free money. That's the good money. That's the money you want to try to go for, right? Is the free money, the money you don't have to pay back. Federal student loans, however, are not free money. You do have to pay that back, usually with interest. One small loan is not bad, but it's advised to either not take any loans if you're able to, or take as few loans as possible, because they can be very hard to pay back. So, completing the FAFSA. What do you need before you fill it out? Does anyone want to answer what they think they might need to fill out the FAFSA? I've mentioned a few things so far, but I want to see if you've remembered. I should play Jeopardy music. Okay, social tax documents. Okay, yeah. Anything else? Your email? Yes, that's actually very important. Yes, you do need your email to fill out the FAFSA, because it is all online. So sorry to those who, I don't know, don't use technology. Federal income. Okay, yes. Anything else? All right. Well, I hope you have your pencils ready, because this is quite the list. This is everything that you need, which in the grand scheme isn't a lot, right? So you're going to need a federal student aid account. So you're going to have to go create that at, I believe it's federalstudentaid.gov is where you create the account. And you'll need, yes, of course, your email to make it. You will also need your social security number. But also, like I said, not everyone who has a social security number, and these are DACA TPS students, is eligible to receive financial aid. However, citizens, permanent residents, and for people who've been granted asylum, you are all in the clear. You can receive federal financial aid. And for those who might have asylum pending, you can complete the FAFSA, but you won't receive aid until your asylum is granted. Another thing that you need is federal tax return information. So this is like your 1040 or your parents' 1040, I should say, a record of assets. That's like everything that your family owns. A list of schools you're interested in applying to, because you will have to enter that into the application. Your untaxed income information. This might not apply. This is something like if one of your parents pays child support or, things like that. There will be a question on the application that you'll get to that'll, ask that in more detail. Your driver's license number, that also might not apply. Your alien registration number might not apply. Savings, investments, bank statements, amounts, these are all things that may or may not apply. Someone who can guide you through the process. Like I said, there's a lot of workshops in the area, and also, oftentimes your guidance counselors at school are familiar with the FAFSA and can help you answer those questions. So that's also, if you're able to, I highly recommend, finding someone who can help you, guide you through the process. And then most importantly is time. You need time. Don't rush through the FAFSA. Plan for it ahead, clear your schedule. If you make a mistake on the FAFSA, it's not the end of the world, but it will delay, whether or not you receive, or finding out whether or not or how much financial aid you'll receive. But it's not like, you make one mistake, they're going to be like, no money for you, never come back again. No, they'll just let you know, you'll have to correct it. It's just, try not to make mistakes the first go around. And a lot of common mistakes are, not reporting the required information. So be sure that you're reporting the correct parent and financial information. Not using the IRS data retrieval tool. This is actually like a very great thing that the FAFSA has done with the IRS, and that allows your parents to automatically transfer their tax information to the FAFSA form. If your parents are eligible to use it, this means if they have, a social security number, they're able to use the IRS direct or data retrieval tool. It makes it so much simpler. If your parents don't have a social security number, you will have to fill out the FAFSA manually. It's not that hard, depending, how many questions you have to answer, but most of the time you don't have to answer, a ton of extra questions. Another common mistake is inputting incorrect information. Please triple check your answers so you don't accidentally hold up the process, like I said, and not getting an FSA ID before filling out the FAFSA form. By using your FSA ID, it populates your personal information automatically, which could prevent errors, and you'll need that to sign your FAFSA form electronically. And finally, a very common mistake is not signing the FAFSA form. Many students answer every single question that is asked, but fail to sign the FAFSA form with their FSA ID. Please don't be one of those students. You get to the end of it, once you've triple checked everything, please electronically sign the FAFSA form. If your parent is not eligible to create an FSA ID, which means, they don't have a social security number, they will have to sign the FAFSA like on paper, and you'll have to send that in. So, be sure to prepare for that as well. Make extra copies of that, signature page, get a receipt from the post office saying that you sent it out on this date, so you can tell them, here's the tracking number, whatever. It's very important that both you and your parents sign once you're finished completing the FAFSA. So another step for how to pay for college is apply for state scholarships. So one of the most important ones of these is Florida Bright Future. You apply at Florida Student Financial Aid, SG.org. And then, you may have heard about this. This is a really great scholarship. It's for Florida public universities. Depending on which one that you qualify for, Florida Academic Scholars or Florida Medallion, you can get 75 to 100% of your tuition covered. And then a $300 additional each semester, and that's for Florida Academic Scholars. And then, so here's the difference between the two. As you can see, the high school credit requirements for, both are the same. So that's 4 English classes, 4 math classes, 3 natural science, 2 must-have substantial laboratories, 3 social science classes, 2 world language classes, sequential, which means like, one after the other in the same language. So this could be like Spanish 1 or Spanish 2 or French 1 and French 2. And then there's an academic portion. This has been updated, as you can see right here. So for Florida academic scholars, it's a 3.5 weighted GPA, a 1330 on the SAT or 29 on the ACT, and then 100 community service hours. And then this award covers 100% tuition and fees, plus an additional 300 per semester to cover the cost of books or whatever other fees that you might have at school. And then Florida Medallion Scholars is 3.0 weighted GPA, a 1210 on the SAT or 25 on the ACT, and then 75 community service hours. And this covers 75% of tuition and fees, but does not include that $300 dollars per semester. The most important thing that you all can get started on right now to be eligible for either one of these is your community service hours. It's so important to get started on those hours because your senior year, you're going to be busy enough. The last thing you need to be thinking about is like cramming in as many community service hours as you can. So just think of it right now if you haven't already started. And there's also other eligibility requirements, citizenship status. So as of right now, only permanent residents, citizens, those granted asylum, or any eligible non-citizens are eligible for applying for Florida Bright Futures, as well as the other scholarships that they offer on the website. So, keep this in mind as you're moving through high school, because you're going to need to keep your GPA up. You're going to be, make sure that you're taking all of these necessary classes. And you're also going to have to make sure that you're prepared for when it comes time to take the SAT and ACT. So yeah, just keep everything in mind, because like 100% of tuition, that's amazing because you won't have to pay any of that money back. Even 75% is better than nothing. So yeah, very important. Okay, and then now we're going to move on to scholarships. So scholarships. Okay, where to look, right? I talked a little bit about this earlier, but we're going to go into more detail. First and foremost, go to your guidance counselor. They might be able to help you figure out what scholarships are available to you or available in the area. So that's always a good place to start. Other high school websites, a lot of high schools actually have their own scholarship databases, so it's always worth taking a look to see what they have. Local community college financial aid. A lot of community colleges do offer, a good amount of financial aid. So it's always a good idea to call and ask, what kind of financial aid or scholarships they might offer you. And then there's different community groups like the Rotary Club, Knights of Columbus, American Legion, the YMCA. Trying to think of other ones. I'm sure like even Key Club maybe has a scholarship for students. So it's always a good idea to look around town, if you will, and see if there's any community groups that are offering scholarships. Local businesses sometimes will offer scholarships as well. And most importantly, don't participate in scholarships that require a fee. It's free money. I mean, what they ask for in return is an application and sometimes an essay or maybe something else, but never money. You should never pay to apply for a scholarship. And then another good tip is keep track of all application deadlines and amounts. As freshmen, there's not a ton of scholarships open to you, but there are quite a few, so do look into them. But the best thing you could do right now is start looking at different scholarships that are available to you and start making a list of ones that you'll be eligible for when it comes time, for your senior year. So do keep track of them, of all the applications you find, all the deadlines, all the amounts, it will help you in the future. So then these are two scholarship subtypes. Because, as I mentioned, scholarships can tend to be need-based or merit-based. So academic is based on academic achievements, GPAs, and test scores. It has usually minimum requirements, but oftentimes there's an essay component. some can be awarded by the university. And then there are sports scholarships. These are typically awarded by the team coach at the university. You know, they take obviously your athletic ability into consideration when they're, you know, figuring out who to give the scholarships to. You must have a prior experience in sports. So actually now is a great time to get started in sports. But don't wait until your senior year to, you know, try to become like an all-star sports person. So these are, you know, common scholarship subtypes. So academic, sports, these are both merit-based scholarships, and then there's of course need-based. But the most important scholarships you can look at are local scholarships. There are several local foundations that we are so lucky to have in the area that offer really good scholarships for students going to college. You know, this is the Community Foundation of Sarasota County, the Manatee Education Foundation, the Manatee Community Foundation, the Gulf Coast Community Foundation, the Selby Foundation, the Education Foundation of Sarasota County. It's very, very important that you set aside time to work on these applications, not just for local scholarships, but for any scholarship. Because like I said, there's a lot of components to it. You're going to need to submit an application as well as maybe an essay, a school transcript, and also letters of recommendation as well. So it's kind of like applying for college. It tends to be a little bit, you know, easier, I would say, but you still want to put time and effort into them as well. And these are really, really good, you know, local foundations that offer, you know, really good scholarships. So, you know, please keep them in mind as you're going through high school. And another great thing about local scholarships is that compared to nationwide scholarships, where there might be, you know, tens of thousands of students applying for them, local scholarships, there tends to be, you know, only really in the thousands who might be applying for the scholarship. So the chances of you receiving it is a little bit better. So it's really important to look local. There are also scholarships for undocumented DACA and DACA students. This is the Dream.us, the Golden Door Scholars, the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, as well as many others. There's a organization called MALDEF that has a list of scholarships that are DACA undocumented friendly that you can look at. And, you know, there are scholarships out there that will clearly state, you know, what the citizenship eligibility for the scholarship is. However, if a scholarship does not state that, apply for it. Just go for it. You won't lose anything by applying. The worst they can say is no. You know, yeah, just if, like I said, if it doesn't specify it, just go for it. But these are like the three biggest ones for undocumented and DACA students. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to talk about interpreting award packages. So like I said, your financial aid, or when you apply to college and get accepted, schools will send you a financial aid award letter. And this will include loans, federal aid, if you're eligible for it, cost of attendance, institutional aid, this is scholarships given to you by the school, your EFC, and your estimated balance after the cost of attendance is applied. So how they calculate your financial aid, they look at cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution equals financial need. So this is a quick little quiz. Very quickly, who can tell me what tuition is? Is it A, the total amount the student has to pay, B, the free money a student can get, C, a type of loan, D, part of the total amount that the student has to pay? So, okay, I have B, A, okay. also there. All right, the answer is D. It's part of the total amount that the student has to pay. Other costs include food, housing, books, fees, and transportation. Tuition just covers your classes, does not cover anything else. Shorthand, so like, you know, people will usually refer to the entire cost of school as your tuition, but technically it really is only part of that total amount. The total amount that you pay is your cost of attendance. Your classes is just tuition. So that's important to note when you look at your financial aid award letter or when you go to pay your bill, because it'll say, you know, tuition, housing, you know, fees, you know, that sort of thing will be separate from what your tuition is. So this is an example of cost of attendance at a Florida public university for USF, let's say, because go Bulls. Tuition will be $6,410. Your books, and this is always an estimated cost because, you know, you're not required to buy your books through the school, and I actually recommend that you shop around online to see if you can't get them cheaper. You can rent them off of Amazon or Chegg or through the bookstore, and that tends to be a little bit more cost effective than, you know, going out and buying a brand new textbook because they are not inexpensive. And if your professor is nice enough, sometimes they'll give you like a PDF copy of the book that you can use or access. So yeah, books $1,100. Housing, food usually is always the most expensive part of going to college, depending on where you go. It's going to be about $11,836, and then any personal expenses that you might have, and some colleges include this, some don't, is about $4,100. And this is like, I don't know, traveling with friends on the weekends, going to restaurants outside of campus, things of that nature. So in total, you're paying about $23,446 a year. And so schools know, you know, usually what the cost of attendance is. And then when you send them your financial aid information, like your FAFSA or any other, you know, supplemental documents, they'll be like, what can we offer this student? We can offer $6,000 in FAFSA. They already have $6,200 from Bright Futures. They got $7,000 in local scholarships. Institutional, we're going to give them about $1,500. And then other scholarships about $3,000. So that brings up, you know, your financial aid award to $23,700. So that means, you know, you're getting more than what the college needs from you, right? So you have a little bit of extra money that you can use to, you know, cover whatever you want. You know, that's usually the time if you get like, you know, pretty much most of your college covered, you can use that extra money to, you know, put it towards supplies you might need for school. So, you know, a new laptop maybe. And I see there's a few questions. So very quickly. Yes, this is for 1 year. This is just 1 year of school, but you pay typically by semester. So do keep that in mind. And then as for how many scholarships you can get as many as you want. There is no limit. However, some schools do kind of take away from the financial aid that they offer you, depending on how many scholarships you received. So do keep that in mind, but not all schools do that. So it's kind of what a financial aid award looks like. How about for the rest of the years? It's for every year that you'll get the financial aid, Karina, so don't worry about it. Like for every year that you're in school, you will get some form of financial aid. But some scholarships, some forms of financial aid do require that you know, have good grades, you know, that you maintain a certain GPA, that you take a certain number of classes. So do keep that in mind, because otherwise, you know, you might lose out on your financial aid. So we're going to really quickly, because I know we don't have a ton of time left, talk about predatory lending, because we want to make sure that you are aware of this as you're starting to, maybe look at financial aid your senior year. So predatory loans come in very many different forms, but overall they consist of unfair, misleading, or unaffordable terms that generally benefit the lender at the expense of the borrower. In other words, they're designed to trap consumers in a cycle of debt. And so how can you identify a predatory loan? It's because they look like a shark. I'm just joking. But how amazing would it be? A shark could talk. So usually these are loans that have high interests, outrageous fees, high pressure salespeople, because they're all sharks, and they have big scary teeth. No, but I just wouldn't that be funny? And unaffordable repayment terms. So just keep these things in mind, as well as harassing collection tactics. If you get a loan through the government, usually the interest, while it's not going to be, incredibly low, is not going to be super high. The people who are, coming to collect on their interest are not going to be harassing you. So, just important to keep this in mind. And they're also going to have deceptive advertisements and practices. So they'll be like, yes, we offer 0.1% interest. And then it's next thing you know, it's 5% interest. And they charge a down payment of $1,000 or something. I don't know. So yeah, keep an eye out for these. Some loans are better than others. Yeah. And then, overall, what can you do, when it comes to financial aid? You always should look for grants. You should always look for scholarships and work study options. And as I said earlier, consider loans as the very, 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 very last resort. It's really so important that you look for free money first, or money that you don't have to pay back, before borrowing money from someone else. Because I'm sure we've all heard about the student loan crisis. That's something that if at all possible, you want to avoid or at least minimize as much as you possibly can. So now we're going to look at creating a financial aid timeline. So for the fall of your senior year, start your application on October 1st. Gather all the necessary information that you need and get it in as soon as possible. Also start searching for scholarships. You should start this sooner rather than later. I recommend now. But this is really the time to start applying for scholarships. A lot of scholarships start opening in the fall and the winter. So keep that in mind. And then talk to your school counselor about fee waivers for the SAT, ACT, or college application. Most college applications do have a cost, but oftentimes you can get those waived depending on your financial situation. Same thing with the SAT or ACT. So winter rolls around. That's 2 days in Florida, but we'll say that there's winter here. You're going to have to continue your search for scholarships, continue to apply for more scholarships. Consider early decision financial aid packages. That's when you apply very early to a college, and then you're accepted and you kind of have to, commit to going to that school. But those financial aid packages tend to be a little bit better than regular decision. And then complete your admission applications. So, that's kind of, really looking at schools, going on the Common App and getting that done before, January and February rolls around. So spring, review your award packages. So during the spring, oftentimes you'll be receiving your acceptances. So you're going to want to compare those award packages, ask a lot of questions to the financial aid office, and accept one from your selected school. Kindly decline the offers you don't accept by sending emails letting them know of your choice, and then complete all the paperwork that is required by the school. Another thing you can do is also appeal the financial aid that was offered to you by a school. If you're saying like that's not enough, tell them that. Oftentimes, you might get a little bit more. They might, restructure it to maybe give you less loans and more financial aid. You never know, but it never hurts to ask. And then finally, summertime, enjoy the summer, but consider applying for, a job or two to save up some money for college expenses. Make sure you're attending orientation to prepare from your transition from a high school student to college student. Ensure you're registering to, for your classes. This is also when the FAFSA is due. But keep in mind that you're also going to have to reapply for that in the future. So, any questions or anything else? I see that Lucero said that many scholarships or financial aid are renewable as long as you keep your grades up. Sometimes you have to reapply, and she had to reply every year. That is very true. Very important to keep in mind. The best GPA to maintain, Karen, it depends. It depends on what you want to do. But I would say that the best GPA you can possibly maintain, a pretty solid one would be a 3.5. That's considered good by many scholarships. That's usually the minimum for a lot of scholarships. But whatever the best you can do is what I would say, go for it. If you can do better than 3.5, absolutely go for that. But at a minimum, it usually is like a 3.0 to 3.5 that scholarships are looking for. Any other questions? No. Lucero, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, but I think everything that you said was great. And I think you all should keep it in mind. It's never too early to start thinking about this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely not too early to think about it, even though it doesn't really become all too relevant until you're a senior. But knowing how you're going to pay for something that's pretty expensive is always a good idea to start thinking about. Just a reminder, we are still accepting applications for the Future Leaders Academy. The deadline is at the end of this month, but we will still be accepting some applications afterwards until we, fill all of our spots. So keep that in mind. Here's the application link. I'm going to put it in the chat. This is the link to request the application. And it's very important to make sure that when you request the application, it is sent to your email and cell phone. And then a portion is also sent to your parents' email and cell phone number. So make sure that they fill that out, because otherwise your application won't be marked as complete until they're due. And then let's see. Karen, for the tax documents they ask for, do they ask for the taxes that year? No, they ask for the taxes of the year prior. So yeah, for, if for students this year, they're looking at, your 2020 taxes. So yeah, they do ask for last year's tax documents because, no one has filed. Well, I'm sure a few people have, but not very many people have filed for 2021. So yeah, they're usually asking, for 2020 or 2021. What is an unofficial transcript? An unofficial transcript is it's essentially the transcript that you can kind of maybe get from your school portal. It's usually not sealed because official transcripts are often sealed in a very fancy envelope, which is kind of what makes them official. And they're usually more set as opposed to unofficial transcripts. There's really no, I'm sure there's a better explanation, but I mean, it's essentially just a fancier version of your, report card. And it looks at, all the years you've been in high school, as opposed to just a semester. Any other questions? It did? It says both? Where did it say both, Karina? On the application or in the presentation? Okay, so on the application. Yeah, so what you find, you should be able to download it from your school's portal or ask your counselor and they can send it to you. Yeah, that it tends to be electronic. So the Future Leaders Academy is not a scholarship, but we can help you find scholarships in the Future Leaders Academy. So we'll help you kind of, figure out what you need to look for, the ins and outs of filling out the application. So essentially it's a program that, you have to be a current freshman, sophomore, or junior. It's a year-round program where we, kind of teach you basically all the steps of the college going journey, or, all the steps of going to tech school or, community college. So we also, look at scholarships, financial aid, but we also help you create a college and career plan that works for you. So we do career exploration. We talk about different schools. We help you find your best fit college. And then we also help you kind of figure out, how you're going to best stand out in your college application. So it's kind of a combination of all those things with the goal of getting you or having you create a plan for after high school. Does that answer your question? Is it free? For most students, yes. If you're a low income first gen student, you may qualify for a scholarship to participate in the program. But so I would encourage you to apply. So any other questions before we wrap up? No? Okay. You're always more than welcome to contact me. My email is alex@unidosnow.org. If you have any questions about what I said today, please let me know. There is I realize I did not share the link for the survey. So I'm going to do that real quick. Lucero, is there anything you want to add about FLA?
If you're considering applying, I would say to go for it. I think it's you guys are at a great age to start thinking about college and most importantly to improve. And I think that's what I wish I would have had. Like if I would have learned about what you guys are learning right now, like as a ninth grader, maybe things would have been a bit easier, less confusing, and I would have had support earlier on. I joined actually when I was in 11th grade, and it was a lot to learn. So yeah, I would highly recommend you guys join. It's basically college coaching mixed with like life skills, things like how to do an interview, how to speak in public, confidence, things like that, and career exploration. So it's a good mix of everything. So if you're thinking about it, do the application and focus on the essays because we want to see what kind of person you are, what your motivations are, and what your dreams are.
Thank you. And yes, Karen, you can apply for scholarships as a freshman. Some are open to freshmen. Most are usually open to seniors. It really depends on what you find. But yes, you can absolutely apply to scholarships as a freshman. I also put the link in the chat for the survey. So if you take a moment, click on it so you can open it and just fill it out. That would be greatly appreciated. This way I can follow up with you by email, with some information about what we talked about today. So yes, even if you filled it out before, please fill it out again, just to make sure that I have all of your correct information in the system. But we're gonna wrap it up. So thank you so much everyone for being here today. Really great to see you all and hear from you. Thank you, Lucero, for being here as well. And yeah, like I said, if you have any more questions, we are here for you. I look forward to seeing everyone's application for the Future Leaders Academy. And with that, I wish you all a good night. So bye, everyone.